Hello, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harping on Rugby, where, with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. First up, joining me this week is someone earning his 37th Harping cap. Welcome back to Mr. Rugby Keno himself, also known as Keno Muller.
Thanks for having us back again, Jeff.
Indeed, good to see you. And to complete our panel this week, I've invited someone making his 24th appearance with us to go with a host of written contributions in our article-based days. He's getting close to 200 combined offerings. And when he's not harping here, he also runs his own article-based site in Post to Post Sport. Welcome back to Mr. Kieran Duffy.
Contributions, and it's nice to know how to pronounce Keno's second name. Actually, I've never heard it out loud, I have to say.
I officially think he's still being polite with me, but we carry on nonetheless. And so this brings us to our final thoughts, starting with Keno.
Yeah, I think for me, probably the biggest single thing about this match was, despite the yellow card, discipline. Now, did improved discipline allow our game to flow, or did our game flowing better lead to better discipline? It's hard to say. Causation is a tough thing to prove. But even with that yellow card, we conceded 3 points. It was really well managed. And outside of that, we conceded 9 penalties in this game to Fiji's 14. It's an improvement over the 11 we conceded against Argentina and the 12 against New Zealand. And it just kind of shows the importance of that 10-point margin, that 10 penalty margin. Of course, it matters where you give them away as well. But we really didn't give them an in. We also controlled the match much better. Again, causation, don't know which way it's going, but it was 62% possession and 66% territory. We had 49% possession against Argentina and 42 against New Zealand. And if you're going down below 50 or even towards the 40s, it's putting yourself in a really difficult place. If you have to take absolutely any opportunity that comes your way, and that's really difficult to execute against really good defensive sides like Argentina and New Zealand. Also, our defense was excellent. 93 tackles kept Fiji in check for almost the entire match. Yes, fell asleep a little bit towards the end, but 93 tackles for 2 tries in late stages of the game once it's dead. Superb. But the attack flowed. This is the first time we've seen our attacking flow in a fair time, like since Six Nations at least. But even then, it was stuttering a bit. It was impressive. We gained over a kilometer, 33 tackle breaks, and 13 line breaks. It was 800 meters run versus Argentina, 420 versus New Zealand, and the 13 line breaks we got 4 against Argentina and 9 against New Zealand. That'll give you an idea of the difference. Offloads as well, 12 offloads against Fiji. It was only 8 against Argentina, 4 against New Zealand, giving you an idea of the different kind of game they were between them. Kick pass ratio was 12.1 for this game, compared to 9.5 against Argentina, 5.3 against New Zealand. Very conservative against New Zealand. We really went for the trusted the running rugby in this. Big physical side. You could try kicking to them and challenging them in the air, or hitting them hard when they take it and come down. But honestly, our hands were enough. We were able to get past them. We were able to be physical in the contact areas as well. So that was the way to play it, and it worked out wonderfully. Line out remains an area for improvement. We nearly hit 80%. Kind of 80% is the watermark in international. You want to be above 80%. We got 14 out of 18 in this game, 77.8%. It's okay, especially with a very young starting hooker like it's his first cap. You forgive a few issues around the line out for that. Given that, say, New Zealand, we were 7 for 10, so that's 70%. So it's still an area to work on. It really is. We need to get that up above 80 and keep it there. The other big talking point for me, I think, was just the impact of the substitutes. It was something we really didn't see a huge amount of in the previous 2 games. Was substitutes coming on having a positive impact. Conor Murray had a great game coming on, as did Kieran Frawley. both not where they were meant to come on. Prendergast, O'Toole, Clarkson, McCluskey, good energy coming in the second half. Kelleher coming in for Aki. The players out of position was a big thing for me as well. Despite all of them, the chopping and changing and mixing, everyone still seemed to know their roles. Maybe not to as great an extent as if they were running that role in during the week, but like everyone knew what they were doing. There was no huge issues with that, and that was a real positive for me. That to me, that's a mid to long term positive as well. That's something that's really important to build up going into tournaments, is the ability for players to go outside of their traditional role set. So yeah, I mean, I think I'll probably let Kieran cover some of the individual player performances. So I'll just say, like, it was a good game. It was exactly what Ireland needed at this point in time, was to see an improved performance, an improved result, new players being blooded, young, freshly capped players doing well, and it bodes well for Irish rugby in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, the way the first game went in November, it was always going to be like we needed the 3 wins, I think, for a success, for any kind of net positive from November. So that meant that whatever happens in any week, we're going to be like, well, we'll see what happens next week. So there is a bit of that. There's Australia to come next weekend, but still, overall 8 tries with new players getting game time and all that kind of stuff. You have to see the positive of that overall. What do you think, Kieran?
I think generally it was overall a positive game. I mean, there's no side of World Cup year. We have a game against a tier 2 nation in the pack, whether it's Fiji, Tonga, Georgia, Samoa, someone, and it's always kind of a, yeah, well, it's only a tier 2 nation. If we don't do well, suddenly it's a disaster, and it's a obviously Irish fans are very quick to say the world's ending if we don't have a perfect performance. And if we do well, it's kind of a, yeah, well, it's only Fiji, Georgia, whoever else. So in fairness, I think we did what we need to do. And as Keno said, there were a lot of changes and a lot of players playing out of position by the end of the game. And that's really important. I think that's something that Ireland have typically had. That kind of adversity has become a buzzword for this Ireland team, and that even if it's a case of, right, you're playing on the wing today. I know you're a scrum half, but you're playing on the wing, or you're gonna have to step in the center. It's just players get on with it, and players don't worry about it. And I was really glad to see that happen. I think Murray actually did really well coming on, and it was the kind of thing beforehand in scrum half. Before the team was named, I was hoping Craig Casey started, because I think, look, for so long when Johnny Sexton, and I think Jamison Gibson Park is kind of the equivalent of scrum half. They're such an important player that we nearly didn't build any depth around him, and we were nearly like, okay, where are we gonna, what happens if Sexton's not around, if Sexton gets an injured, if Sexton isn't available for a game, what happens if Jamison Gibson Park isn't available? I think Craig Casey did really well. Look, he had a bad kind of first 20 minutes, and it was probably a case of, coming up against a very physical side when you're a very small player. And look, the reality is, if you're a particularly small player in a very physical game, you're always going to find things difficult. But in fairness to him, every hit he got right back up. He showed a lot of energy, kept trying to make things happen. So I think he's still young, in fairness. So I think a couple of years' time, there won't be that same gap. And obviously it's one of those things where, like, you probably put Gibson Park and Dupont as the 2 best scrum halves in the world. So naturally, whoever's underneath is going to step down. But I wouldn't be worried about it if, Casey had to start against England in the Six Nations. I think he'd be capable of it. Murray was a player I was thinking then, Murray's been around for a while. Is he kind of past where he needs to be at this stage? And he was in the past a very good player for us. He was a crucial player for us in the past. So I was kind of thinking, is he kind of past where he needs to be? But in fairness, again, he did really well when he came on out of position. And I think Sam Prendergast, I think the point we've kind of all made throughout the podcast is that, in fairness, he might have got sent off, might have not, whatever about it. He had a few blips, but he bounced back and kept going, and that's what you like to see. That's the same positive I was saying about Jack Crowley, who I do think is right now our first in our three number tens. He makes mistakes and he bounces back, and that's what you like to see. You like to see. I often lament Ross Byrne for being a confidence player in the sense that he makes one mistake and the head goes down suddenly, or he misses a kick and the head goes down. That's what you like to see. He's like, okay, I made that mistake. I'm going to go back and rectify it now next time. I think Crowley probably starts next week. Just for that consistency, I actually wouldn't mind seeing Crowley and Casey start, and not to wrap Gibson Park and Carlton Roll away or anything. You can have them on the bench, but I just think it's no harm having different combinations exposed in the half-back pairings, because for so long we were reliant on Sexton, and in a lot of ways Sexton and Murray basically. So I think it's good. I will reiterate the point that Crowley wasn't dropped for this game. It was just rotation. You need to rotate your fly-offs. You need to rotate every position. This is a game to do it in. So there was no one being dropped. But yeah, I think generally speaking, it'd be good if Crowley starts next week, and then you have Frawley on the bench at number 10. Obviously, Leinster glasses on. I'd love Prendergast to be playing against Ulster because I think he's better than either Byrne. I don't see that happening necessarily. Izzy Chukwu, I think, had a decent game as well. He's been a player that's impressed. He's kind of been around. I think he's been in the squad a couple of times, just waiting to get that cap. But in fairness, he's impressed a few times, and I think he's he was useful. He was a decent player, and again, I think in a couple of years' time, as he gets more exposure, we're so used to players coming on and putting in 10 out of 10 performances straight away in their first cap. That's not always going to happen. That's reality, and as well as that, it doesn't always suit players. Sometimes coming in a more innocuous game suits players because we've seen things in the past like Joey Carberry, prime example, comes on, bursts onto the scene, suddenly gets a few injuries, peters off. He's not even in the Ireland setup anymore. Jordan Larmour had a bit of a dip after getting injured. So, sometimes making your debut, making your first couple of caps is just a case of building up caps and building up numbers. You don't have to set the world on fire in your first couple of caps. I thought Keane Prendergast was good when he came on, and again, good to have that bit more depth. Good to have two relatively new faces. I know Prendergast have been capped a couple of times before, but relatively new faces in the back row. Gus McCarty again, like Sam Prendergast, didn't let a few mistakes get him down. I know there's a lot of talk about, it's amazing for Gus McCarty the fact that he was basically, I think, fourth choice hooker if Dan Sheehan had been fit for Leinster, and now he's starting for Ireland. You think Lee Barron might be a bit disappointed with that one, bad time with the injury. But in fairness, I know there's talk about. Look, should one of the hookers go somewhere else? I think the thing you kind of have to say as well, it's kind of up to the player as well. Maybe they're happy at Leinster, but as well, he's certainly proved this week that he's definitely capable of starting big games. So yeah, I think overall it was just a positive performance. Jamie Osborne injury, a bit of a concern. I think again another place we probably lack that bit of depth is full back. So I wouldn't mind seeing someone else play over Hugo Keenan next week to give them that bit of exposure. I think for so long it was Rob Carney. He was always there unless he was on a balcony. But he was always he was consistently number one, and we didn't really seem to have a number two in that position. But Jamie Osborne now seems to be that answer for number two at fullback. I think we need a number three who puts pressure on the number two and the number one. But at the end of the day, I think we're building that bit of depth, positive performance. Not and it's not even a win as a win. There are positives to take out of the performance. Still work ons. But yeah, Australia will be a different kind of test, obviously against the whole narrative there around Joe Smith. But yeah, look, that'll be probably a more difficult test. But hopefully, going into that game, there's not too many more injury concerns aside from Osborne. Frawley took a bit of a beating in that game. So yeah, look, plenty of positives. Happy with I think the debutants did well, the fringe players did well, and it was a big score, 42-point win, or 30 something point win. So good win overall, and good mid November international.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about the scrum halves going into this November, and I think it's unusual the way the situation we have now. It's that it's not so much a pecking order of scrum halves. I think our best options now are Gibson Park and Murray, or Casey and Murray. There's a lot of things that maybe Casey doesn't have enough caps in him, and you wouldn't mind him getting more, but I don't think like in the top matches. I think we've got to go with Gibson Park, but I think Murray is a great option off the bench for both of them. I think so I think it's just the way the talent we have. Obviously, we're going to need more outside that. We're going to need more, but there is talent coming through the ranks. We see them coming through in all the provinces, so we don't seem to doing too bad. Glad you mentioned Izzy there. I thought he did really well. I think he really looked like he belonged. They went for him early in lineouts as well. He was a lineout choice. He fits right in. He's a good 5-6 option as well, but he's been doing well at 6 for Ulster. One thing I liked about the lineup, this particular 23 is that it had all 4 provincial captains, but I'm just starting to wonder if we've spoken about Henderson. I don't think he's had 2 great cameos in this series. Maybe he needs time back with Ulster. I don't know. When you see someone like Izzy coming through and belonging so much, and you're looking for the future, we'll see what happens there. But listen, this particular game gives us loads to talk about individuals, and it certainly didn't disappoint in that, and we got the win, so it was all good. Listen, lads, that was brilliant. We're going to leave it there. Many thanks again to Keno and Kieran for joining me. I hope to have you both on again soon. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Jeff.